Hello and welcome to the Startup and Career Show, an interactive talk show where we bring to you inspirational and real life stories of startup founders and corporate leaders. I'm your host, Rushabh, in conversation with our guest for today, Ms. Sharmin Ali, founder of Instoried, an AI-powered content creation platform. She's a writer, theater artist, entrepreneur, and a generative AI leader, all clubbed into one. A very warm welcome, Sharmin. Glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much, Rishabh. Great to be here.
So, Sharmin, with Instoried, you've taken content creation to a different level altogether. But before we get there, would like to request you if you could give a little bit of your background. You know, since you've worn so many different hats, being a writer, theater artist, and now an entrepreneur.
And an angel investor also, actually. Not too many
That's the
people
other
know.
one.
I've made 10 investments in startups.
Wow.
But yes, sure. I would love to give you a little bit about myself. The usual, like most Indians, engineer, from Vishweshwaraya here in Bangalore. And then passed out in 2010, joined a company called Musicma in its very initial days that time. Worked with a number of companies in the US, helped Musicma grow. And then I understood that I was just helping the rich get richer, wasn't adding too much value to my own life. And I was like, for me, charity always begins at home. So, I decided to quit my corporate career and, decided to pursue the whole entrepreneurial journey. Started my first company. It's been a long while now, but yes, content is something that I've always been very, very enthused by. And I really love stories. I love telling stories. I love listening to stories. Actually, I think I love listening to stories more than I love telling them myself. So I decided that I had to go into the content space. And that's how we decided to build India's very own Netflix, back in the day when OTT platforms were still very new in the country, because the Netflix revolution had already begun in the US, but because Geo was still picking up. So what happened is that we understood that we are a little ahead of our time, but we created like 70 original scripts of our own. We put a lot of web series on YouTube, on Vimeo and everything. We had over like 300,000 plus followers and over like 4 million plus views. But then at that point in time, getting paid for content wasn't that big a thing. And, we were still figuring out how to monetize things and all. So a Bombay-based production house reached out to us saying that, they would love to get the copyrights of our content. I was like, okay, I think this is a good time, because it was almost 3.5 years. So decided to sell the copyrights of all my scripts and took the money, exited. And then 2 years later, I see, a lot of my scripts on some of the very well-known shows on Prime. And I was like, okay, I can't even claim any copyrights on it, but still. So I think great experience that was, for sure. Then I pursued on to, the next chapter, which is the one that I'm doing now. It's been almost 4.5 years that I'm running Instoried. In between, of course, I also wrote 2 books, got them published. One was announced a bestseller back in 2019 by the New Indian Express and the Oxford bookstores. That, I think, was my little validation that, yes, I am in the right space because I love content. So, then I started Instoried, where we were like, okay, how do you use technology to, help people create better content? In a nutshell, we actually built our own version of Chatgpt back in 2019. Chatgpt is, of course, a very big thing now, but then, and I mean, Chatgpt is built on like over 1 billion plus data points. We obviously didn't have that much money and, that amount of workforce. But we took about 2 years and, we used 70 million data points and a lot of, freelancers. And and also we partnered with 7 universities globally, including the likes of Oxford, Cambridge, and we took their help to basically get the data sets, the content, English language primarily. And of course, back then people were like, why do you really need AI to generate content for you? But I think now, now that OpenAI is talking about it, Microsoft, Google are talking about it. So, now everyone's like, oh, okay, fine. Now we get it. What, the whole term generative AI actually got coined because of GPT 3.5, right? Because it actually means that generative pre-trained transformer. So, from there, the word generative AI came. But then not too many people know that, we actually used our own version of generative AI and we built our own Chatgpt back in 2019, So now, of course, there is great validation globally. Now people know about it. But we were the first ones to actually do it. So again, yeah, that is what Instoried is into, and so ChatGPT for marketers, ChatGPT for designers, and now we are also entering into the video space. So ChatGPT for video editors, and I haven't really announced it still to anybody else. This is the first time that I'm talking about it on your podcast, but I'm really happy to share this, that we are launching a new services side of things, where which will be called as Chatgptexperts.co. The reason being that what we've seen is that everyone knows about ChatGPT, but unfortunately people don't really know how to make the best use of it. They know that there are multiple use cases, and they think that if you just plug in the APIs, it's done. No, but that's not true. You need ML experts, and you need certain data sets to actually connect the dots and build a product. So under chatgptexperts.co, if you are a startup and you are really fancied by the word ChatGPT and you don't know what to do with it, ChatGPT experts, because we built our own ChatGPT back in 2019. So there is no one else who can actually understand what your problems are and what you're looking at building. We are here to help you. So that's an additional service that we decided to start. And also another very important thing is that a lot of abuse when it comes to AI is definitely possible, right? That is on the cards. So we want to make sure that there is responsible deployment of AI, and people should know how to use it, and it should not be used for any abuse. So if you're a startup and you don't know what to make of ChatGPT, OpenAI, we would help you connect the dots, and we would actually build a whole backend for you. So that's our new service that we are launching in the next 10 days. Yeah.
Wow, this is awesome, Sharmin. I mean, you've taken it to a completely different level. I mean, before this podcast, I said about content creation from a image and textual standpoint. Now you're adding another element to it, which is video, and the world is anyway just moving towards video, right? So that's very interesting on that front. But Sharmin, while I was reading about your effort and the work that you've done, also got to know that you did a detailed research and deep dive by speaking to over 500 odd neuromarketers and neuroscientists before taking the plunge. So how was that experience like? Because see, and this is very important, because many startup founders, they just jump into something without doing the complete research about the work that they intend to get into. So if you can throw some light on that aspect as well, this is pretty big.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the reason why we even decided to talk to neuromarketers in the first place, right? Because I've seen a lot of people build products and then figure out if it is even a good fit for, their customer or not, right? I didn't want to take that route. I was like, I need to get some early validation. I need to understand if it is really something that people need, right? So I went to neuromarketers. Now, as the term speaks for itself, neuromarketing, basically people who preach the fact that do not just randomly, don't just randomly create content in order to sell your product. Create something that can appeal to your audience's brain, right? Hence the word neuromarketing. The reason being that we human beings are very emotional people. So for any product to actually resonate with your audiences, to actually stick and make sense, right? It has to be sold in a way, your content, your marketing, your communication has to be something which can appeal to your customer's brain. So hence what they said is that there are 5 emotions that we human beings connect the most with. namely joy, anger, fear, sadness, and surprise, the 5 basic emotions. So if your product is, for example, fear, insurance, right? Healthcare. If you're selling a healthcare product and insurance product, basically what you're selling is fear, alarm, right? So your content should have the right emotion in place, and you will see that it will be so easy to sell to your customers and appeal to your audiences. So we definitely wanted that validation to understand that, listen, I'm gonna pursue this journey, but does it even make sense? Should I even spend time doing this? Because until and unless you are not convinced yourself from some real people, right, you cannot really go out there and convince investors or customers, right? And all of this has to go hand in hand. As a result of that, I went to Harvard to speak to 500 plus neuromarketers, and they were eventually the ones who connected me to a huge forum, a huge platform where I really got to understand how marketing really works. It's not just about creating ad copies and then um, understanding how Google ads works or how Instagram ad works. No, the thing is that how do you even get the branding, the messaging right? I mean, you have to appeal to your audience's brain, to their emotions, and that's why we did this.
Well, this is interesting. You spoke about the emotional engagement, right? And any messaging is very effective only when it actually connects on the emotional level. So what it generally means that Instoried offers chief content officer on a click. Am I right to presume that?
Oh, absolutely. That's what we say, that your extended chief content officer or your extended chief marketing officer. Yes.
Wow. So the other thing is, what I understand is, Sharmin, so far content efficiency was always measured post publishing, but with Instoried, effective content creation is in the pre-publishing stage.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is very simple, that what happens is that most of the gauging, right, that whether your content is going to do well or not. So in a traditional company, what you'll see is that the life cycle of content is that you do research, and then the content generation team would generate the content, and then the editing team would make the edits, and then graphics team would give you the design, graphics, etc. And then people, there are certain stages in which people decide that, okay, this looks good, editors basically, right? But then it's all very manual. There is no technological approach to actually gauge whether your content is going to really sell, or if you would get that click on your email, or if it will something, or if it's something that would actually make people purchase your product, if it is any sort of content communication that you're doing. So that's where we were like, why not build another angle to this, wherein what we can do is that, okay, don't just randomly create content, get it tested by technology that we've built in-house, saying that, okay, we have already seen so much content, and we know what content can perform like what. So what the machine would do is that it would give you a percentage figure stating that, okay, this is how good your content looks like. So which is basically a prediction algorithm that is running in the back end, because it's seen so much content, 70 million plus data points, right? So it knows that, okay, this kind of a content can give you X amount of performance, and if you want to increase or decrease any sort of emotion, tone, anything, then what you do is that you can use the smart recommendations that the tool is giving you, and then using those recommendations, you can then sell better, create better content. So essentially, yes, what we do is that even before you've published your content, and even before you can actually see what your click-through rate has been, the machine would tell you that this is the kind of impact your content can have. So there is a prediction algorithm which predicts, even before you've published your content, that this is how good or bad your content is. Yeah.
Wow, this is really awesome, because you're actually completely making it so simple, because today the teams actually work on so many different parameters and then scratch their head why the content is working or not working, right? So I think this is extremely important that you're making it so very easy. But you spoke out the innovation aspect, right? That what you are doing on the audio side as well as now on the video side. But if as somebody who's hearing about Instoried for the first time, how do they start using a tool? If you can just in a just talk about the experience, how the user uses your platform.
Right. So, it's actually pretty simple. You just log in and you start using it. I mean, of course, there is a predefined demo as well, so you just start creating content, and then, it's actually very, very, very easy to use, very intuitive a platform, right? Wherein we want to make sure that even if your granny wants to use it, let's say, right, it should be very, like, really easy. So it'll throw recommendations, it'll throw the scores, the emotion, the tone, and it'll tell you that, okay, this is what it looks like, right? And then you just start playing around with it. So it's actually really, really simple, really easy to use. You create the content, using the content generation piece, and then you analyze the content, wherein you see what is the tone, what is the emotion looking like. If you don't like the rating that it is giving, you can then ask for the recommendations, which will basically help you replace words in your current piece of content. You replace it and you see that, okay, the tone or the emotion has the score has increased, the tonality score. And then from there, you can just keep playing around with it. Yeah. And then you publish. So that's about it. Yeah.
This is quite interesting. But Sharmi, you spoke about ChatGPT, right? And now that it has actually entered into a general lingo, and while you started, this wasn't the case. So when you were building the platform, how did you go about it? Because in order to even explain it to people, to somebody, I mean, that okay, everything will happen automatically. So how was that journey, if you can talk about it? Because getting your initial set of customers is not that easy, right? Because there is a herd mentality. Now everybody knows what is ChatGPT and people will understand. But how were your initial days as an entrepreneur?
Oh, it was very challenging, for sure, because back in 2018, right, when we actually started, the whole startup funding scene wasn't all that crazy, right? I mean, now of course I mean, it's become a little difficult, but back in the day, it was actually much tougher. So, when anyone comes and tells me that there's funding winter, I'm like, I've seen all the seasons of funding, because we started in 2018. So we know what the investor mentality was back then. I mean, now there are so many accelerators, so many angel groups. I mean, raising up to $2 million it's really not a problem. I mean, now of course, because of the whole recession and the market's a little bad, so people are like, okay, if you want to raise anything more than 5, it's going to take a while. But back in the day, we really seen and we know what the mentality was. And on top of that, AI wasn't really a buzzword. I mean, people were talking about crypto, people were always talking about fintech, they were talking about 3D printers and uh, cannabis and I mean, food tech, right? I mean, sustainability stuff, yes. But AI, I mean, you won't really see too many product-led companies becoming unicorns, right?
Yeah.
I mean, or even becoming IPOs, as in going IPOs for that matter. The reason is that people were not really able to understand. So I think the one good thing that has happened definitely now because of OpenAI is that they've commoditized it, right? Now it's like everyone knows about it, correct? So it was really, really tough, first of all, to even tell people that this can be such a great writing assistant, right? This can actually help you do so much more than what you're doing, right? And can actually add so much more value. So actually getting people to understand that, right? Back in the day, and because it's a huge behavioral shift, right? They are so not used to. I mean, they're like, okay, so are you gonna replace my editor? Right? I mean, what is my editor's job then? So of course, that anything that has anything to do with a behavioral shift is definitely going to take a long time, right? So it was very difficult, but then we were actually able to identify a huge opportunity in the adversity called COVID. because during COVID, people were like, okay, everyone needs to sell better online. Otherwise, how do you even sell, right? And I'm talking about the SMEs mainly because they didn't have any footfalls in their shops. They had to shut shop, and they're like, okay, Flipkart pe becho or Amazon pe becho, right? But then how do you even sell better? How do you get the right clicks? How do you get people to actually engage? Well, by creating better content. So that was the pitch actually back in the day when we were talking to audiences. We were like, okay, why don't you do this? Get your content team to try it out, and that is where we were actually able to get the early validation. It wasn't easy, but then COVID was a blessing in disguise. And whatever money that we've raised so far, we've actually raised it during COVID. So yeah, I think COVID was the factor which helped us sell better.
Got it. But Sharmin, when we look at content as a category, right, and especially in country like India, people don't want to pay for it separately, right? And this happens in television, OTT, publishing, right? So, though you are offering a tool, but how is your experience been? Have you also faced a similar challenges, or if you can share some lights about tackling it better?
So yeah, obviously, irrespective of what you're selling, if you are a startup, there's going to be a huge challenge, right? But then in the content space, especially now that there are like some 100 companies doing something similar, thanks to ChatGPT, right? We were the ones who built something of our own, but because of ChatGPT, now people they're just using their APIs and then doing it on their own. It was just, it was so difficult to and it's not really easy to sum this thing up in in a few words, in like in a half an hour podcast actually, because the thing is that the whole experience that you go through, correct, building a startup, and especially building something in the content space, right? Because what is happening is that you are actually going head on with all the content companies, right? Agencies, correct. Now, how do you convince the agencies to use the tool, and how do you convince them to actually pay for it? They're like, no, why should we pay for it? Unless and until the brand is asking me to use it, I don't need to, right? So what we had to do is that the fact that you can use an agency as your customer, right? Because that's also a segment.
True.
So that didn't really work for us, so we had to go to the brand directly. So the whole SMEs, right? Of course it was COVID, and so selling to enterprises was a much more difficult thing, because they were like, listen, can you talk, this XYZ agency is the one that is doing my content, so talk to them. But I know that agencies don't want to pay, right? Agencies globally don't want to pay. They just want to make money, unless and until if they are maybe outsourcing some of their content to you, or if they're outsourcing some of their marketing related work to you, right? We also have a services arm. We because there are, we've worked with over 500 plus customers, and we've seen people who are like, listen, AI is great, but I want a content writer to actually create this content for me, so can you do that? Now during recession, will I go and say no? I can't say no, right? I'll be like, okay, I'm running a startup, I need sales, right? So
True.
either you sell idlis, or you sell hamburgers, or you sell a tool. It doesn't matter, as long as the money is being routed through the company,
True.
So we also do content services, and each and every company, like for that matter, even Grammarly, which is like $200 million plus funded, right? They, when they started initially, now because they have a lot of money, so they don't have to. But even then, initially when they started, even they used to engage in services, so whenever a customer said that, listen, AI and all is too much. In fact, these days, I'm so surprised. A lot of people, even though ChatGPT is like everywhere, people are like, listen, it's all AI and all. I don't want all that. Okay. Because if it is throwing this response to me, it will throw the same response to my competition also. Okay. I don't want all that crazy stuff. I want a human being to create content, So the thing is that, getting them to pay for AI is actually, sometimes it can definitely be challenging, as opposed to getting them to pay for, let's say, a freelancer writing content, or a marketing agency doing content. So there have been both sides of the coin. There is no one size fits all here. A few companies are like, okay, fine, I'll use the tool, I'll do it in house. Few companies are like, listen, this is all fancy stuff. 5 years ago it was 3D printers, now it is Chatgpt. 2 years later it will be something else. I don't care, mera dhanda rukna nahi chahiye, so I need a person who can create content. This is what people have actually told me. So that's when we understood that you can't just be a product company. You have to be a tech company. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference.
Yeah.
Because in a tech company, you can do both product and services. But in a product company, you're just selling a tool, right? But the world is moving in a direction where AI has become a huge commodity.
Yeah.
And that is exactly the reason why we decided to even take the services out in the first place. Because we're like, every other company is doing the same thing, and ChatGPT is free, right? I mean, some of it's, some features are free, of course, not everything. There's a ChatGPT Plus version wherein you pay like $25 per month and you get it. But can I sell something for that cheap? No, I can't. I'm a startup, right? Now, OpenAI has $10 billion from Microsoft and, a lot more coming. So in order to ensure that there is user engagement, they, for the first 4-5 months, it was absolutely free. And now they have a premium version wherein, you get better responses. But that is also far cheaper. OpenAI has now become like the Reliance that is there, in the content space, right? Just come, sab kuch sasta kar do, and then you just get users to engage with you constantly, right? So what is happening is that actually, because I am so well connected with so many agencies, India, US, UK, one thing that I've seen is that these agencies are now actually suddenly started benefiting. The reason being that they're like, ki bhai, every other customer of ours is now saying the same thing, that listen, it's giving similar responses.
Yeah.
Because OpenAI has been trained with data until 2021. What about 22? What about the first 3 months of 23? Right? So many things have changed. So they're like, listen, this is not aware of a lot of things. Right? So, as a result of that, this can again be an opportunity in, this adversity for people who are thinking, Arey yaar, hum to ab obsolete ho gaye. Right? So don't just stick to a tool. That's what I'm saying. So agencies are actually making money now in the services route, because people are like, listen, it's giving the same responses, to me, to my competition, because everyone will want to create blogs, will want to create emails, will want to create ad copies, and two competing companies will have similar use cases. So uspe to ChatGPT is not magical, right? I mean, it can't give like unlimited number of iterations. So wahan pe, it has still not beaten the human originality, the human creativity, right? So selling is obviously difficult. Getting paid in India or anywhere for that matter during recession is definitely difficult. But where there is originality, there is creativity, and it still hasn't replaced the human mind. Of course, it has made a lot of jobs redundant. Especially the reporting jobs, right? And some of those basic things. Definitely they've been like completely eradicated now for years to come. But then it has also given an opportunity for services to actually grow. That is the flip side of technology, right? That itna aage badh gaya hai that now people are like, listen, no more. Because now it's a question of originality. Yeah. So very subjective.
But very well articulated, Sharmin. Thanks for saying this, because it's not about being afraid of AI, right?
Yeah.
AI will not replace humans. It's like back in the day when people were saying that computers aa gaye hain, abhi humans ki zarurat nahi hai. Computers actually redefined the whole thing, and it took a step further, and people also upgraded, right? And same thing happens here. You have to live with the technology and just grow up. But I think you articulated it very well. Thanks for this. But Sharmin, the fact is, at the end of the day, people have to pay, right? Now, if you can just talk about your business model, your pricing elements. So how do you charge? Is it basis number of content pieces somebody uses to, somebody creates from your tool? How does it work?
So, I mean, there are obviously multiple ways of, charging it, right? So we've initially, when we started, we had a lifetime deal that was going on that, $49 and you can use it forever, right? That is, of course, to, get engagement and get people to use it, right? But then that cannot sustain in the long run, of course. So now, what we have is a $59 per month per user, up to a certain number of API calls, right? And then after that, it will throw you a prompt that, okay, you need to upgrade, so on and so forth. Yeah. But also, if you are a company, and let's say you have a lot of content requirements, so then what we do is that on an average, we charge about $15,000 per annum from a company for unlimited number of users and unlimited number of API calls. The reason being that it's a long-term commitment, year-long commitment, right? So yeah.
Absolutely. I think, Sharmin, it's been almost over 30 minutes that we have spoken about this. And before you leave, I just wanted to ask you about the AI future, right? Since you were the one who actually pioneered this thing back early in the day when ChatGPT was not unheard of. So what is your assessment, if you can talk about how AI is moving forward?
A lot of mixed responses actually that even I'm getting from, as in my circuit of people, because I mean, the kind of people that I'm talking about are, people who are actually, who've been working in this space, right? I mean, I spoke with someone at Anthropic who was basically erstwhile OpenAI, and he's like, dude, I'm scared. I'm like, why are you scared? He's like, I don't know what I've done. So the 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 thing here is that we use 70 million data points, but now when somebody's using 700 million or 1 billion plus data points, imagine the scale, right? And then what will happen is that once it gets into a self-learning mode, right, that more the content it experiences, the better it starts giving you results, right? AI is no magic. It is all about the input and then the processing. And so better the input, far superior is the output, right? And there is one app that I recently came across where what they've done is that they've used ChatGPT to, I mean, if you are depressed and if you feel like talking to someone, talk to this app. Basically just asking questions and this app will respond, right? And it's so unfortunate that it's actually throwing abuses as well. And if you, I mean, I was reading a few as in some of these documents that a few psychotherapists have actually come up with, that you need a psychiatrist, you need a psychologist or a counselor to come and speak to if you are depressed. Are you trying to completely eradicate that by AI? Now that is very scary. That is very scary, right? Now here, what is happening is that in this one, so it was actually a white paper that someone had written, and I came across because someone shared it. And in that, it's written that this person who's recently had a breakup, this man, he's so obsessed to talking to his machine, right? That now he's like, why aren't you giving me responses? Why aren't you saying what I want you to say? And he's abusing the person that he was dating, and the response that is coming is also an abuse, that yes, you're right, she did this to you intentionally. Now that is toxic, that is traumatic, right? It can be misused. So that is where these psychotherapists are like, what is happening? There has to be responsible deployment of AI. There has to be a control, right? So that is again the reason, I mean, all of these things together, because I am so connected in this circuit, people are like, we really need someone to come up, someone who really has that expertise to venture onto that services side, and hence chatgptexperts.co, wherein we're like, how can you responsibly deploy it? Because the thing is that those filters have to be given, right? There is immense amount of data, and this data is going to keep doubling every 18 months, right? I mean, as we know. But then there have to be those filters and those variables defined in a very, very crucial, very effective way that, listen, if you get this kind of a prompt, then you say that, no, I am not going to give you an answer for this, right? Abuse needs to be stopped. And that is what people globally are now figuring out, that misuse, I mean, you cannot imagine the scale at which this can be misused, right? I mean, seems like there'll be a day when, you don't need to do anything. All you need to do is eat, sleep, and just do your basic daily chores, right? A machine is going to be so smart, and it would have learned human activity so well that purchasing things or purchasing vegetables, getting a car, or ordering something, or even making payments through your bank accounts, it would not need a human to do anything, because it would have learned those patterns, and then it would completely take over. Now that is very scary, right? So those filters need to be deployed, and that is where my biggest concern is. And coming from someone, we built our own chat, our own version of ChatGPT back in 2019, but back then we didn't know that this is possible. We were like, okay, how can you enable great marketing communication in a very easy way? But now we are like, okay, this can be misused. So that layer of responsible deployment is required, and hence we are now beginning to pursue that journey where we're like, you want to do anything with ChatGPT and you don't know how to do it in a responsible way, come to us. We will do it for you. I think this is very important, very, very important. Yeah.
I think you as pioneers in this field, Sharmin, it's all the more important that you're there, because you have seen the other side, which the world at large has not been aware of, right? So I think it's good that somebody like Instoried is there, who's guiding people and stopping the abusive part of the AI, right? I mean, so I think you're definitely redefining content creation in the post-AI world, and we wish you all the best. And thank you for taking out time today. It was lovely speaking to you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Same here.
And to all our audiences, thank you for tuning in for the show. We shall continue on our mission of bringing more such real life stories, guys. Goodbye. Signing off for now.